That is a lot of people. Oh, is that my phone?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, it's right there. This up your account. Alphabetical order.
All right. Andy, you'll watch one.
If anybody wants them.
It's good to see you.
You got it, Heidi. Yeah, you got it, please. I like if anyone
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our District 6 Candidate Forum. My name is Heidi, and I'm one of the District 6 coordinators for Speak Out Seattle, along with Julie Hall over there. So first of all, thank you all for coming. Also, I want to say hello to everybody who's watching our YouTube live stream right now. And for those of you that don't know, we do have a YouTube channel. Please subscribe. That way you're notified when we add new content. First, some housekeeping rules for everybody in the audience, as well as all the candidates. Please silence your cell phones. There's nothing worse than an interruption of a phone call or loud text messages. First of all, let me tell you a little bit about Speak Out Seattle. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan, grassroots citizen advocacy group. We have members in every single neighborhood of Seattle and beyond. We advocate for evidence-based and compassionate solutions as they relate to addressing the issues of public safety, homelessness, and addiction. Today, however, we are all about letting you guys get to know these candidates up on the stage. You all have a very important job to do in August, which is to vote and turn out for the primaries. Don't forget, it's in the summer. You are in charge of deciding which two of these candidates make it to the November elections. I personally cannot stress how important it is to turn out for the primary elections, and historically we've had very low turnout. If we want to enact change, we must be a part of the solution. We hope this forum helps to educate you all about the candidates so that you can make an informed decision for yourself about who you feel is best to represent your district, who will be an effective and responsible steward of the over $6 billion budget that we have, and enact policy that help improve public safety and the well-being for all of our district residents. Also, we've hired some folks from the Millionaire Club charity to help us with the setup and disassembly of this event. So those of you that aren't familiar with the Millionaire Club, they help connect people with dignified jobs and supportive services by providing job training, meals, career coaching, and more. So I encourage you all to speak to them here and what their experience has been with this amazing organization, and I thank them for being here. Lastly, let me introduce you to today's forum moderator, right beside me here, Mike Lewis. Mike is co-host of the Candy Mike and Todd Show on Pyro Radio. He's also a bar owner here in Seattle. He's worked as an editor and a reporter for The Patch, Seattle PI, and other newspapers. And he's gracious enough to give us his time and help us moderate this event today. So please help me welcome Mike Lewis.
Hello, and welcome to tonight's forum. We have just a few ground rules for the events. These ground rules apply to the candidates as well as the audience. Please be respectful of each other. In the interest of time and common courtesy, please refrain from applauding or cheering for proposals or responses from candidates, with one exception which I will explain in a moment. We expect the same from the candidates, although I can't see you guys applauding for each other necessarily. For the candidates, questions will have a response time of 45 seconds, except for the opening question and the final closing statement, where you will have 30 seconds for each response. To keep track of time, we have a time clock that you can all see, plus a volunteer will be waving a yellow card when we get to 10 seconds left in your answer period. Keep in mind that the clock starts at 0 and moves to 45 seconds, not the other way around. I will introduce each candidate by name in just a moment. Audience, please welcome each candidate with your applause after I introduce them. After that, we will ask you to refrain from applause or cheers and allow the candidates time to answer the questions. After the introductions and the first question, which will be done in alphabetical order, will then rotate so each participant gets a chance to answer a question first. After the questions, we will have an introductory question to start for the candidates, and then two that pertain to the core issues of Speak Out Seattle. The rest have been submitted by the audience via index cards we have filled out, and I may have a question or two myself. Again, in the interest of time, not every question will be able to be answered, and I may rephrase the question slightly to allow for clarity. Speaking of that, I'm not here to follow up with the candidates' answers. However, I may ask a follow-up question to clarify or get more specificity. Okay, let's meet the candidates. We're working from, I think, from my left to right. Jeremy Cook. Fathi, Sergio Garcia, John Lisbin. Kate Martin. Joey Massa. John Peeples. Terry Rice. Dan Strauss. And Heidi. All right, we're going to do the candidate introductions. So you have 30 seconds to respond. Tell us who you are, good, and why you are running. Start with Jeremy.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Cook. I've lived in North Ballard since 2003. I'm running for the city council because I feel they currently are not doing a good job listening to the people that they are supposed to be representing. Instead of just complaining about it, I've decided to run for the council because I would like to do a better job of respecting the voters' wishes and representing their interests. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for coming. Fathi, family physician, lifetime Seattle resident, graduate of the University of Washington and the University of Washington School of Medicine. Wanted to give back to my community and worked at the 45th Street Community Health Center for 12 years, taking care of homeless folks, low-income folks, those with severe mental health and addiction disorders. I founded the primary care program and community health program at Swedish. Then I ran an Obamacare health plan across Washington that brought health insurance to 250,000 people. I have been in the district for 21 years with my wife and 2 sons who go to public schools.
Sergio Garcia. I live in Phinney Ridge with my wife Maria. I'm a Boston Terrier Ave N. I'm a police officer. I have nearly 15 years of police experience between the state of Florida and Washington. 3,500 hours of those experience has been here in the neighborhoods of Phinney Ridge, Ballard, and Fremont. And during this time, I've been able to have a true understanding of what the underlying issues are and what's causing these issues.
John.
Hi, John Lisbin. I'm running because, as well, I feel like the city council is not listening to the voice of people that have legitimate concerns. I earned a master's in public administration at the University of Washington recently. I built a company that was one of the fastest growing companies in Washington. And I also, as a member of Seattle Fair Growth, we brought together a coalition of 29 neighborhood groups and community groups that collaborated to give a voice to their neighborhoods, and that's what I want to do for you.
Kate.
Hi, I'm Kate Martin. I'm a small D Democrat running for this nonpartisan position. And I like to say I've been preparing for this job for about 20 years. I have a passion for public policy, and I'm a professional planner and designer, and I've been creating win-win solutions for my entire adult life. I cannot wait to serve this district and the 12 neighborhoods, the wonderful neighborhoods that are here, to be your next council member, actually giving D6 finally the representation they need.
Joey.
Hello, my name is Joey Massa. From my years of experience serving our state and nation in the Washington Army National Guard to my experience living through homelessness as a youth and surviving cancer in my 20s, I am uniquely qualified for this position. I am unknown to many of you, but as my campaign progresses, I will impress upon you that as your elected representative, I will listen fully and bring the kind of servant leadership that our city desperately needs to City Hall. Thank you. My name is Joey Massa for Progress.
John.
Good evening. I'm John Peeples, a resident of Green Lake. I came back to Seattle 9 years ago to work for Boeing, and I've thoroughly enjoyed what the city has to offer. If I'm elected to represent you on the city council, I will bring in engineers, thoughtfulness, and consideration to both cause and effect of our city's problems. So please register early, and let's go for 100% voter turnout in August. Thank you.
Terry.
Good evening. Good evening.
Should they sorry, try John's if that's okay. There you go.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Terry Rice. I'm a lifelong resident here in the state of Washington. I'm a renter and a Metro user and a small business leader. I got into the race to champion progressive policies to deal with Seattle's most pressing challenges, from homelessness to affordable housing to the city's aging infrastructure. We know that we can do better in so many ways. When it comes to public safety, when it comes to upstream diversion, when it comes to long-term supportive housing, these are all areas we want to invest in. Thank you.
Dan.
Hi, I'm Dan Strauss, and I was born and raised in Ballard. I went to Adams Elementary, Whittier Middle School, and I'll admit that I went to high school outside the district. I went to Nathan Hale. I've had the opportunity to work in 4 different legislative bodies, and I currently work for the city council. I've been there for a year and a half, long enough to know where the opportunities and the roadblocks are, and not there long enough to have caused them. I have a deep passion for District 6. I've only lived in Ballard, Upper Fremont, and Green Lake, and I want to represent you and bring a district hall to the district so that you don't have to schlep downtown to have your voice heard.
Heidi.
Hi, I'm Heidi Wills. I'm a mom, a small business owner, and a longtime nonprofit director specialized in youth development. I'm concerned about a number of issues affecting our quality of life. We need safe neighborhoods, clean parks, and a focus on basic services. I have a long history of civic engagement. I have collaborative leadership experience in solving civic problems. There's a lot at stake. Our kids and all of us deserve better. Thank you.
Okay, we're getting to question 1. Question 1 is going to be from Speak Out Seattle. Jay, you'll start. Police statistics show that crime is up 34% in Ballard and 56% in Fremont since 2014. As a council member, how would you address the rise in crime, and how would you fund any proposals?
Well, obviously, the rise in crime is extremely constraining to all of us. We see it ourselves in the community. Again, I'm active in the community with my kids, myself. We see all these things happening. We need to work with the city attorney's office and the King County prosecutor and really have a really candid discussion and figure out what we're going to do as far as what seems like somewhat of a permissive nature right now that's going on the city streets. And we need to decide what problems we're solving, if any, with such a permissive nature. Along those lines, there's a lot of issues involving substance use, mental health problems, and I'm not going to say homelessness and criminal activity go one on the same, but there's certainly correlations as we see increasing homelessness. We need to make sure the police department is fully staffed and properly trained.
Sergio, and if any candidate needs me to repeat a question, just ask. You would like to repeat it?
No.
Okay.
I don't think there's anybody else that understands public safety here as much as I do. I live it for 9 hours a day. There's a ton of things that are wrong with what's going on with public safety when it comes to insufficient policing from policies, lack of legislation that it causes us to not be able to do our jobs, to the fact that we are unable to hire or retain any employees. It's very easy to say, well, let's just go out there and hire more police officers, but it's not that easy. There's underlying factors, just like there is underlying factors as to what's causing homelessness. There's underlying factors as to why we can't hire anybody, why can't we retain any employees, why can't we hire locally. There's also an approach of community policing, community engagement. There has to be rebuilding the trust between the community and the police department, and I plan on doing that.
John.
Well, I think we're all looking for a quick fix, and we think the fix is the criminal justice system. And in a lot of cases, yes, we're going to have to do that. There might not be a choice, but there's mounting evidence. There's tons of evidence that people with mental health issues and people with substance use disorder, it doesn't really help if they're in jail for a long time. In fact, when they come out, they can't get a job and they can't get housing. So we really have to look at another approach, more like other methods and other tools we have, like medically assisted treatment and law enforcement assisted diversion program. And those tools, I think, will help us break the cycle of recidivism.
Okay.
Pete Holmes and Bob Ferguson said that 80% of the people that are homeless in Seattle are addicted. That's what they used in their lawsuit against Purdue Pharma, so I'm going with that number. I have a 4-pronged approach to solving it. The first one is prevention. This problem did not come from nowhere, and we need to address upstream where it's coming from. 70% of the kids in the youth justice system came from foster care. That's one area that we could really make investments in success. Treatment. We have not a single recovery portal in this entire city for someone to report to when they're ready to recover. And when that moment comes, we need to fully receive them. Harm minimization, that's 360 degrees so that we're not hurting the public while we're helping the addicts. And enforcement, we're about 800 cops short of a full day. Thank you.
Joey.
There are many issues with our rising crime in this city, from our prosecutorial agenda to a lack of more robust and hard-nosed diversion programs. To top this all off, the extreme deficiencies in our police force and a lack of robust community policing are clearly hurting our population and our public safety. Thank you.
John.
Specifically about the rising crime rate, it's very important that we get community policing and more beat cops in the higher crime areas to patrol and keep people safe. I'm a big fan of the current bonus system, the $7,500, $15,000 hiring bonuses, because we are short on police officers. And big thing would be to allow the police officers to do their jobs, untie their hands so that they can do their jobs. Thank you.
Derek.
All right. When it comes to public safety, we need to start with increasing the policing capacity to keep up with Seattle's growing population and the changing nature of the types of crimes that we're experiencing today. This includes things like investing in new facilities here in the North Precinct to help increase that policing capacity and expanding programs that work like law enforcement assisted diversion. But we also can't look at public safety just through the lens of what SPD or the city attorney's office can do for us. We have to look at it in terms of long-term supportive housing with wraparound services for people who are experiencing mental illness, who have substance abuse challenges. That means lowering the barrier to access those services so that people aren't being turned away at the door when they aren't sober to access sobriety treatment.
Dan.
Great, thank you. There's three things that we can do, and that's provide housing, services, and as a last resort, using jail. Jail is the least effective use of your tax dollars in fighting this problem. And we know from our Seattle Police Department, they are some of the best trained police officers in the nation. They receive additional training after they leave the academy. This is part, and that's vis-a-vis our consent decree. We need to be able to cross-deputize our city attorneys so that they can work with King County prosecutors to prosecute crimes in an effective and meaningful manner for all Seattleites.
Heidi.
Seattle has a small police force for a city our size. In fact, New York City has double our per capita rate. Our police department is stretched too thin and we lack police presence in our neighborhoods. But it's not just a matter of funding. We have over 300 vacancies. There's a challenge in recruiting and retaining officers. The signing bonuses will help a bit with recruitment, but to retain officers, we need to ensure the best wages, working hours, and working conditions.
Sure.
I don't think that it's a matter of police pay. When they get out of the academy, they make about $80,000 a year. I think rather it's a matter of not allowing them to do their jobs. I don't know who's telling them not to do that, whether it be the city council, the mayor, or the city attorney. But they obviously want to do their jobs, and so if it's a demoralizing job, then they're not going to want to stay there or hire on. So I think we need to empower them and also enforce the laws and give people treatment and work release so that they're not just continuing to be on the same addiction pattern. Thank you.
Okay, second question from Speak Seattle. And we're going to start with Sergio. Half of all unsheltered people are living in cars and RVs. Do you support FEMA-style tents or other emergency-type shelters to get people out of their vehicles, and how would you fund this?
So is this with this, or I'm answering the question?
You're done. You can answer this and get 45 seconds. You can use the sign.
So again, the issues here, they're different. Public safety and homelessness are two different issues, and I think that we're addressing them under the same umbrella. I'm not necessarily saying that I'm here to criminalize homelessness. I am not here we cannot arrest ourselves out of this. I am basically here to criminalize criminal behavior, right? And that's a start. I truly support that, and I think the first thing we need to figure out is where our money is going, right? We're spending $1 billion a year. The count for homelessness is 12,000 in King County. That's the average of $83,000 a year per homeless person, and that's also the average income of a Seattleite right now, right? So the number is astronomical. So we need to create a hub, a centralized location where these people can start getting the services they need.
John. The mayor, Mayor Murray, quite a while ago, declared an emergency. And I don't feel that we've been acting like it's an emergency. And I think instead we're kind of nibbling around the edges. What would happen if we had an earthquake? Do you think people would be out there on the streets all over the place? No, we'd find places for them. So we need to find bridge housing, whatever that is, whether it's FEMA tents or tiny house villages. We need to get people off the streets, and we need to give them services. And once we do that, and once people see that people are off the streets and the city council's actually doing a good job, then I think they'll support more permanent solutions.
Okay.
So the statistic on homelessness nationally is 1% of our US population. So whether it's here, East King County, any place over the state, we need to be providing for that statistic. And in my opinion, we need to geographically distribute the solutions, because this is not all Seattle's problem or all anyone's problem. I can feed a lot of people at my table, but I can't feed everyone. So everyone needs to be all in with a uniform solution. I think that the FEMA tent solution can work once we triage the situation, figure out who everybody is, what their challenges are, and how we can address them. I mean, we can't throw everybody into a big FEMA tent together until we do the triage, but I do think that's, if we geographically distribute them and they were humane, it could really work.
Joe.
Do you repeat the question? Sure. Half of unsheltered people are living in cars and RVs. Do you support FEMA-style tents or other emergency-type shelters to get people out of their vehicles, and how would you fund this?
Thank you. My campaign platform supports creating a baseline system of permanent and semi-permanent encampments, FEMA-style tents, Connex-based shelters where we can start to provide basic facilities and services to these individuals who are struggling with what is undoubtedly some of the hardest struggles of their lives. Further, I would also really like to look at the viability of providing a jobs program for some of these individuals so that once we start to establish security and pride in their living situation, we can also give them something proactive to do within our community. We have a lot of messes to clean up, both literal and figurative, and we can very much start working on those with the labor forces at hand.
I do support the use of FEMA-style tents and any other temporary living arrangement that goes hand in hand with a triage approach in a central location where all those in need can have their needs addressed by the professionals who are talented enough to address them. FEMA-style tents or whatever clean living arrangements have to be arranged in a way that the formerly homeless can begin to reestablish meaningful relationships with each other and family members perhaps, and with the community at large, and have jobs so that they can begin to restore that dignity of having a job. And I would start funding it by discontinuing the streetcar project.
My true north on this issue is the ability to move people from homelessness into homes. So I would consider a proposal like this if it came with the wraparound services that rapidly rehouse people, and if those services were delivered by service providers who have a demonstrated track record of exiting people from homelessness. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is looking at the service providers who have demonstrated that they can do this work. but it still feels like that stopgap measure, like we're treating the symptom and not the cause. So I want us to focus our efforts on upstream diversion to help people stay in the home that they already have. We know that's the most effective and affordable way we have to combat homelessness, and then also on long-term supportive housing, because we know that that's where we're going to truly make those exits from homelessness.
Dan.
Yeah, thank you. I absolutely am supportive of emergency-style housing, and what for me that means is 4 walls and a door that locks. This needs to be a place that couples can be in, people with their pets can stay connected with their pets, because they already have meaningful relationships with many people in their lives, and they need to build upon these relationships. They absolutely need to have wraparound services at hand, and we have the ability to look at the performance-based outcomes that are already in place and expand upon that, using funding to fund the programs that are seen to be working and discontinue the programs that are not working.
Heidi.
Seattle has 1/3 of King County's population, and yet over 70% of the county's homeless. Seattle cannot solve this problem in a silo. We just don't have the funding capacity for it. We should have more accountability and transparency in how current funding is being spent. We need an integrated regional approach and individualized solutions to address the root causes of homelessness, including housing first with supportive services, no child sleeps outside, veterans, our moral obligation is to help them. Mental health, the state needs to step up. Our bigger challenge is what do we do about those who will not accept shelter and services, especially those suffering from substance abuse disorder.
Jeremy.
I agree that we need a regional approach to it. However, I am in favor of a scalable FEMA-style or warehouse-style shelters. It'll be good to have it all in one location so that the professionals that are there to help them can help them and not have to travel throughout the city. They also need to reduce barriers to employment to help these people get jobs. It does not need to be the Four Seasons, just a clean and safe place for people to rest their heads and stay out of the elements. Pay for it, I would say, by looking into the $6 billion budget and seeing what that is more important than. Thank you.
Jay.
I agree with many of the things that have already been said, and to answer the question, yes, I think that's definitely something we should be exploring, no question. We're talking about a straightforward question to something that is an extremely complex problem. And I think most people in this room probably know that the path to someone being born and being someone's baby to being homeless is pretty long and pretty complex, usually involving adverse childhood experiences, childhood abuse, trauma, poverty, mental health issues, lack of access to health care, pretty big problems, nothing we're going to solve overnight. We definitely need to work on having more shelter space because a FEMA-like tent is a shelter that is a temporary thing. I agree with my colleagues up here. We need to have social services in those places, but the ultimate solution is more permanent supportive housing, like some organizations like DESC and Plymouth are already doing. Those things work, they're cost effective. We also need to have more accountability and coordination.
Okay, first question from the audience. This will be another 45-second response. We'll start with John. Do you support increased density in Seattle? If so, what policies to promote increased density do you support?
Well, that's a great question, thank you. Yes, I support increased density, and as a member of Seattle Fair Grove, former member, once I became council member, or not yet, but as a candidate, I'm thinking ahead. You know, we understand that growth is coming and we're not trying to stop growth, but we also need the infrastructure to support growth, and we want people who are coming here to enjoy Seattle as much as we do. And as a candidate, I would want to make sure that we have impact fees to pay for some of the impacts of growth. And impact fees will pay for parks, will pay for roads, and will pay for schools, and we desperately need. And I don't know why we're not doing it.
Thank you. As a planner, I've been kind of appalled with this process that we came through lately with the HALA and MHA crammed down our throats. We already had the capacity we needed for 25 years of future growth without doing that. It seemed to me that it was kind of a little bit of a corrupt process that Ed Murray made with some developers. I favor density. I'm living it myself. I rebuilt my house on 73rd from a Rambler to the full envelope they allow you to, and there's 8 of us sharing that house very affordably, so I'm walking the talk and living it. I don't want us to blatant build over all of our single-family neighborhoods. I think we can take the 35% lot coverage that we're allowed and just incrementally increase the height of the buildings over time to get the density, rather than building the monocultures we've been building.
As Kate mentioned, we have done some upzoning recently. We should look at the impacts of that upzoning and plan on whether we need to upzone further. But I would absolutely look at our urban villages and ensure that those are at the capacity that they should be bearing. Further, we should recognize that increased urban density supports conservation through allowing more space for green spaces. It supports utilization of public transportation and other effective public and private transit options, as well as creating a truly livable city. Because if you can live where you work where you live, and shop where you live, then you can live in your city. Further, I believe there are a variety of large and small barriers that we've put in front of small homeowners who would like to create more dense solutions. Thank you.
John.
I do support increasing density in the urban villages and along the proposed transit routes. I also very much support our existing single-family zoning and hope to see that preserved. As far as building in the urban villages and accommodating everyone who's coming to our city, we need to look at current zoning and code regulations and see if we can knock down some of the barriers that developers see that keep them from building housing for our low-cost housing.
Gary.
Yes, I support increased density. If we're going to truly lower the cost of living in Seattle and reduce displacement from our most marginalized communities and folks who are on fixed incomes, we have to increase the supply of available housing. Now, how we do that is how we can sort of get to the solution while keeping transit-focused development front and center, and also remembering that this is very good climate policy. So we're going to have to expand density around our urban villages and along transit corridors. But we can also do more in single-family zones to make it easier for homeowners to build things like ADUs and DADUs. We can put plans publicly available online to lower that cost. We can ease some of those regulations.
Dan.
Yeah, thank you. I absolutely support density because when density is done right, it supports local businesses by giving them more places to have their storefronts. It puts people in the same place that they want to shop, work, and play, where they can live and have a great life. The thing that we've missed at this point is when I lived on 63rd and 20th in Ballard for 4 years, there was only about 4 months that there wasn't construction on the block. I watched a block's worth of organically affordable rents disappear and turned into homes that cost $700,000 that did not have a design that fit the neighborhood. This is what I mean when we need to preserve our community and promote our economy. We need to build a transit system that gets people downtown and across our district without getting stuck in traffic if we're going to have this density.
Heidi.
Absolutely. We need more housing opportunities for people, all shapes and sizes kind of housing. In the city where we have the amenities to couple with that housing, but where we haven't. The disconnect that came from the city is that this was not done in collaboration with the citizens. When I was on the council, we had Jim Deers, who was the head of the Department of Neighborhoods. We had neighborhood planning, and it was a robust process that engaged citizens. I think that a blanket top-down approach has caused a lot of dissatisfaction in our communities, and I think we need to do things differently, empower the people who are affected by these decisions.
Jeremy.
Yes, we have to grow. However, we need a more individualized approach. Putting condos where they aren't wanted does not benefit anybody. I also disagree with allowing developers to opt out of providing affordable housing by paying a fine. I am also curious as to how much that fund is and what it is currently being used for. I haven't been able to find that information. Also, I would like to protect legacy businesses from being pushed out as well. I think that a lot of times that happens, and people hate to see them go, but there's other ways that we can keep them all together. Thanks.
Jay.
Yes, I am in support of that for a multitude of reasons, including talking with my mother. My mother's 85 years old and has lived in Seattle almost her whole life, Queen Anne Hill. And when she complains about things in Seattle and says, where's the old Seattle? I say, Mom, I tell you, the rest of the world has discovered our city. It's really a cool place. And it was our secret, and it's not anymore. The growth is going to keep going. There's 100,000 people moving in here every half decade to decade, and you can't go back in a time machine. The zoning laws from 1940 or 50 don't make sense anymore. I'm sorry. We have to have increased density. It's got to be done in a sensible way, as some folks here have said, with the proper input done in the right places. The incentives for the builders with impact fees need to make sure we need to make sure those align also to give us the desired outcomes that we want.
So I grew up in a hot apartment in Miami with Fluffy, my 2 parents, my sister, 2 hamsters, 7 parakeets, and a turtle. So I do support density. I do understand that as the city grows and people like me are moving into the city, we definitely need more supply for the demand. I also am privileged to live in an extremely nice house in an extremely nice neighborhood in Phinney Ridge. And the key word here is smart growth, right? And I think there's room in the table for both. I think that we should preserve our neighborhoods and we should develop in areas that are suitable for development, right? Where there's public transportation, where there's bike lanes, where there's accessibility for people to walk and go to the markets. So I think it's really to sit down and the experts, right? The people that are suffering here and are being affected to have these conversations.
Okay, second audience question. Another 45-second response. We'll start with Kate. Kate, what are your thoughts on tolls for the city streets of downtown? In other words, what's known as congestion pricing?
I think they're way got the cart ahead of the horse on that one. We don't even have the transit that we need for this city. They keep torturing us with how we don't need cars, but they don't give us the transit that we need. So I say no to doing that congestion pricing, where it's not fair to us right now. We need transit, and we need to be able to sit down on the bus when we're going to work. And we need to be able to go east-west, for goodness sakes, because not all of us go downtown. And I just think that it's the most preposterous proposal that Jenny's come up with so far.
So, to follow along with what Kate said, I absolutely agree. I am probably one of the lowest income candidates running for city council, period, this cycle. In this district, in this city, irregardless. And to be frank, this type of proposal shows how out of touch our current administration and leadership is with the needs of our community members. I used to commute down to Soto every single day for work. If I had to commute through that SR 99 tunnel these days, it would add about 30% to my transit costs at the time. It's unacceptable, and there's no public transit to support the amount of folks who are lower income who would be pushed into those types of tolls. And it would just increase the types of issues we're facing already as a city. Thank you.
As your representative on the city council, I will ensure that congestion pricing and pay per mile, for that matter, will never be instituted. And if anyone installs a surveillance device, it'll grow legs and walk. Curb to curb, there is enough room for all of us. Bikes, buses, cars, trucks. There's enough room for all of us. I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, where we had 2 throughways through town. So if you got going the speed limit, the lights were timed and synchronized. So you'd go all the way through downtown without stopping. And rarely stopping. Fifth Avenue needs to be a throughway. No on the congestion pricing, and we need everybody, all hands on deck, to oppose it.
Okay.
No. This is one of those things that, again, goes about impacting the folks who are at the lowest end of that income spectrum. Small business owners, they're really the ones who are going to end up feeling this more than any others. But beyond that, we're just not there from a transportation infrastructure standpoint yet. So it's not a good policy now. It's not going to be a good policy later, because it's unavoidable that the most marginalized folks are going to feel this. What we should be talking about is how do we make it easier to use Metro? not how do we force people out of their cars. So how do we make the sidewalks and the crosswalks safer and the bus routes more frequent and expedite the building of light rail to ensure that using Metro becomes the easy choice, not the forced choice?
Dan.
I, like many of these candidates up here, have a lot of concerns with who is impacted the most by a congestion pricing proposal. As you've heard, we need to focus on transit and complete streets to be able to get us around our district and sometimes downtown. And what I've found is that it's going to be 16 years before Sound Transit 3 reaches Ballard, at least. And in that time, we have a lot of opportunities to create the transit networks and get the reliability that we need to depend on so that we don't have to look at a schedule, so that we don't have to guess when the next bus is coming. We can go to the bus stop and know we can get where we want to go on time and not in traffic.
Heidi.
Okay, I'm open to it. But before you throw tomatoes at me, let me tell you that I was the student body president at the University of Washington and got the UPass program, and they tried to recall me student body president. Let me tell you that I worked at the county where I helped push through Sound Transit, and I can't tell you how many people were opposed to that idea. So when it comes to new ideas, I'm open to it. Do I think we can meet objections to ensure that we are not disproportionately hurting low-income people? I think we can institute a sliding scale. I think that there's a lot of technology that can be utilized to do that. Of course, we need better bus service first, but I'm open to the idea, to all new ideas. I think we need to embrace them. Thank you.
Jeremy.
I say no to congestive pricing. We need to make Seattle more affordable to live, not less. I'm not for tolls. However, I would like to see the city change the lights so that traffic flows more readily, as they have purposely timed them to slow traffic down as a part of Project Zero. I think that's counterproductive, and I don't think that is the way to get Seattle moving again.
I think it's important for any policy to try to ask the question, what problem are we trying to solve? And to look at evidence. As a physician, that's what you do. When you come and see your physician, you want them to agree with you, first of all, what the problem is, and then employ some things based on evidence and see if they work. What I've learned about congestive pricing and congestion tolling in London is that the goals were to decrease the carbon footprint, decrease the amount of cars there, raise revenue for infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, and all those things actually, literature I've seen, that has happened. This has not happened in the United States anywhere. New York is the first place they're starting to do it. There's no way we can do it if it's going to be inequitable. No way. There's no way we can do it if it's going to push people into mass transit and they don't feel safe on mass transit. And I agree, we don't have enough mass transit at this point to support it. We should explore it.
No, I don't support any more taxes. I don't support any more levies. I think that there's ways that we can look into how to produce more efficient transportation. I sit in traffic for 9 hours a day when I'm responding to your calls. And while I'm sitting there in traffic, I notice small things, right? Like potholes. How about we start off with the potholes? How about we start with the timing of the traffic lights, right? Sometimes they don't make sense at 5 p.m. that they have the same cycle as they do as 9 a.m., right? How about we focus on the routes, the bus routes that haven't been reevaluated in over decades, right? I think that that is the problem here in Seattle. We continuously want to throw money at the issues, and it's just a matter of sitting down and figuring out where the money is being spent.
Well, I thought I had something here that would differentiate me, but apparently Heidi and maybe Jay agree. But I do feel, Seattle is surrounded by two bodies of water, and there are going to be some hard decisions that we have to make. We've made some really poor ones in the past, and congestion pricing is one of the most controversial that we've ever thought about. And people are not going to like it at first, but it's been very successful in Singapore, it's been very successful in London, it's been very successful in Stockholm, and it's a way of reducing traffic. And there is a cost to being stuck in traffic, and a lot of our problems are getting downtown. And so if we can, and there's a big cost, and there's a big cost to park downtown. So if people are using public transportation, thank you.
Okay, here's a chance to use your signs that have been provided by Speak Out Seattle. No need to talk on this one. Here is your question. Everyone have a sign? All right.
We can't see the short back
We're about to sign up. No. All right, so here's the question. Will you pledge to support an independent audit of all city departments to make sure that we are spending our $6 billion budget effectively and meeting goals? Yes or no? Okay. Another question from the audience. And actually, I'd like this, if this person would actually identify themselves, that'd be pretty great, because we need to know. Only one of you has bothered to knock on my door or ask for my democracy vouchers. There we go. So one of you apparently has knocked on this person's door. No one else has. Why? We'll start with Joey.
I don't know where you live, sir. So to be clear, we have a district including about 80,000 registered voters, give or take. We're not going to be able to knock on every door. As campaigns, especially as campaigns in a local election, we have to be very smart with our time, very smart with our funds, and very smart with our efforts. So if someone hasn't reached out to you, sir, I'm sorry. We'll try and get to you eventually. That being said, all of our campaigns, I'm sure, are doing our very best to reach out to as many voters and as many constituents as they can. I personally have been at the Sunday Market in Ballard. I will be at the Sunday Market in the University Village. Once the Phinney Ridge and Magnolia markets open up, I'll be out there. I want to talk to you. I'm hosting streaming town halls. I want to hear from you. I am here to be your representative, to listen to what you have to say, and to channel your energies. Thank you.
John.
I'm looking forward to knocking on your door, and I don't need the election vouchers. I'm morally opposed to the election voucher program. It was passed by 27% of Seattle's registered voters in 2015. Tyranny of the minority. I will not accept your election vouchers. And I can't wait to pound the pavement and knock on your door and hear what your story is and find out what you got to say. Please come find me. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't really see you right now.
Terry.
All right. Well, I didn't see the questioner, but it may have been my campaign that knocked on your door. I'm not sure. We're out knocking on doors every day of this campaign, listening to people's experiences here in the district. So if we haven't gotten to you yet, I'm sure we will be there soon. But in the meantime, you can absolutely reach out to our campaign directly, and we're happy to set up time that's dedicated one-on-one to have a conversation as well. So hopefully we'll get to you.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'll see you this weekend. We're also out knocking on doors, and I'm having a really great time having conversations with people all across this district. I've really enjoyed canvassing in Ballard, and I've made myself available at the farmers markets as well. I'd love for you to reach out to me directly, and I'm happy to sit down with you one-on-one or with a group. We've been having conversations in people's living rooms. We've been having conversations in coffee shops. And so if you're interested in having a conversation, again, one-on-one or as a group, let me know, because I'd love to chat with you.
Heidi.
You need a system for conversation.
My campaign manager, Alex Wyndman, and I, and my husband, and my 2 kids, you might have seen them, or this flyer, have knocked on 1,732 doors. So if we haven't gotten to yours yet, we're going to try to. I love the fact that I get to talk to people at their doorstep. So if I knock on your door, will you please take a moment to let me know what matters to you? Districting passed in our district by 63%. I think there's a reason for that. People want to have that opportunity to interface with people representing them. And if you want to give your democracy vouchers to John Peeples, he's not accepting them, so I'll take them.
I'll also gladly accept them. Please, if you would like to talk to me, stop. You can stop by after tonight, or you can contact me through the website. Also, I will be out knocking on as many doors as I can. Hopefully I'll get to you, but no guarantees. But I hope to knock on as many doors as I possibly can. Thanks.
Jay.
I think most of the things have already been said. All of us are going to be very aggressively out in the district, knocking doors, meeting with people. Those of us that are taking democracy vouchers, asking for them. I'm assuming that we all have websites where you can all send us emails. And I personally look at every email that comes into the J for Seattle website. I've met with folks just like these guys have. Happy to meet with anybody. We're here because we want to reestablish trust in the representative to the council for District 6. And one of the greatest things I have found about door knocking is, first of all, we live in a very engaged district. The answer rate is pretty high, and when people answer the door, about 80 to 90% of people are willing to talk to me pretty much as long as I want. And you guys are engaged, and you have great questions, and when you say you're running for city council, people want to talk. It's better than any poll you can ever do. You talk to real people, figure out what they're really concerned about, and that really can help inform you to help govern the city. So I look forward to knocking all your doors.
So I think I've been knocking on doors for 2 years now when you guys call 911 and show up to your house. So I've gotten to know a ton of you here already, and if you guys, I'm out there. If you guys haven't seen my signs on all the small businesses in Ballard and Fremont, I am out there, and I'm also working a full-time job as a police officer, so it is extremely hard because I am probably the only person that cannot answer to any of my emails or messages or phone calls while I'm working, but I have a full staff of individuals that are more than happy to reach out to you guys. Luckily for me, starting this weekend, I start a modified schedule, and I am going to be off every single weekend and off at 5 p.m., so I will continue knocking on more doors. We are all stepping on each other's toes here, knocking on doors at the farmer's market. We're all there, so hope to see you soon.
John. Well, I haven't gotten my upgraded doorbellers yet. Sir, you look very familiar to me. Actually, I'm the only candidate here with the perspective of running last time in this district. And what I said at that time was, we need to do things differently. And, well, unfortunately, we did, and we didn't. And things have gotten a lot worse around here, obviously. And so when I'm knocking on doors this time, people really want to talk to me and I can't get out from those conversations. And my campaign manager is telling me, you can only give 3 minutes, you got to talk. But everybody wants to speak because people are really engaged right now, and that's what I can tell you. Kate.
So on my website, I have a tab called the Campaign Trail, and so you could find me and where I'm going to be on there. But what I want to offer to you, sir, is I also welcome people to come knock on my door and talk to me when it's convenient for them, and I would welcome that because I can agree with John. I can only do about 50 doorbelling visits on a Saturday. It's amazing like how you get caught up in conversations. But I have another thing to offer you. On Cinco de Mayo, I'm having a campaign social at my house from 4 to 7. And I welcome you to join me there, and I'd be happy to have a personal discussion with any of you at that event. Thank you.
Okay, another question from the audience. This is involving safe injection sites. I'll read the question as it is, and then I'll slightly rephrase it. Safe injection sites save lives. Why are we getting these put in everywhere? The question I'd like to ask you folks is one, obviously the U.S. Attorney has come out very much against safe injection sites. Pete Holmes would be a player in this arena. Do you support safe injection sites, one? And if so, do you support one in this district? And we're starting with John.
I do not support the drug injection sites. And when I ever disagree with you, I'll come out and disagree with you. We can still be friends, even if we disagree. The injection sites are not safe. There is nothing safe about poisoning your body with drugs. They might as well say, bring your own rope, and if your toes don't touch the floor, we'll cut you down. Trust us, we're the government. No, they are not safe. And I'm very happy that the U.S. Attorney put his foot down and said they're not going to happen here. I'm looking forward to him showing more backbone and following up with that.
Terry.
It seems that this option's now off the table because of what we heard from the U.S. Attorney, but I would say that fundamentally I would support safe injection sites. And the reason why is because We know that they save lives and they save money. And the reason we know that is because the scientists and public health experts who start these programs and monitor these programs tell us with data that that's what they do. They save lives and they save money. Site placement for something like this is critically important though, because we know that if we're going to place a safe injection site somewhere, we have to have services to those individuals, and it has to be away from schools and away from parks. So yes, I would support it in a theoretical sense, but it sounds like it's off the table for now.
Harm reduction models such as safe consumption sites are good for our community. Richard Nixon was the first person to address the opiate addictions with harm reduction models, and that was through methadone. What we've now found is that methadone is a cure for opiate addictions and moving people off of their addictions. These services absolutely need to be tied to other social services, law enforcement assistance. These are wraparound services and harm reduction models that work, and we need to be able to provide this for our community.
Heidi.
I know that there's strong opinions on both sides of this issue, and for some this might even make or break their vote, that they're so how strongly felt. I know that doctors and nurses tend to support safe injection sites as a harm reduction strategy and as a way to interface with folks suffering to get them on the road to treatment. But what's made the strongest impression on me is meeting former addicts in our community who feel very strongly that this is the wrong way to go. In fact, we have over 23,000 opiate abuse, people suffering from opiate abuse disorder in King County. Safe injection sites are just not scalable, they're expensive, and I think we'd be better spending the money on treatment on demand.
Jeremy.
No, I don't support safe injection sites. I do, however, support medically assisted treatment, such as methadone or the other two drugs, which I can't name off the top of my head. I think that a medical approach as well as a law enforcement approach for people that are committing crimes is a much more solid approach. If you have the option just to walk away, it's probably not going to do you as much good as if you're in there for a while and you're off the drug for a while, and then you have a chance to clear your head and make better decisions.
Jay.
Well, obviously, I've been asked this question a lot, and the way I answer it, I'll be consistent, is I'm not sure if we're asking the right question. First of all, it is essentially off the table right now, in my view, with what the U.S. Attorney has said. Secondly, I would say that when people ask me this, I say, safe injection sites are possibly one tool out of a large toolbox of many things you can use to help people in this situation. Like I said, I'm a fan of evidence-based medicine. I'm a physician. I've taken care of a lot of people that have been addicted to injection drugs. I'm friends with people that are like running the Seattle King County Health Department. The data is actually not that strong. It's been done in one place in North America. It's been done in Vancouver. And the data, that's not a big enough statistical sample. And some things say it helps, some say it doesn't. So for now, we need to wait and see and wait until the evidence is strong. And right now, is not the time.
No, I don't support it. I know it's off the table right now, but I don't support it even if it was on the table. I am the first person that deals with people who are in crisis. I am the first person who goes and deals with people when they're dealing with drug addiction. And I have too many questions that I think that cannot be answered. And although, I am open to have any sort of conversation or entertain any sort of idea that anybody brings to the table, there's so many questions I have that cannot be answered. What happens if a mother shows up with her children and we administer an injection or we can provide child services? How about if somebody shows up driving and they drive away after we administer an injection and they are involved in a fatal collision? Or who's liable civilly and criminally? Too many questions that they cannot answer right now.
I know this is a litmus test question for your votes as well, and I've really struggled on this one because I know that safe injection sites save lives, and I know, for instance, inside of Vancouver there have been 6,000 overdoses and nobody's ever died. And I know, and there's no evidence that it enables people. On the other hand, I I'm really looking at the opportunity cost of this because it's very expensive to do this. And what do we really have to do is we have to provide housing and we have to provide treatment and safe, stable housing. And that's why I vote no.
Okay.
Definitely no. I felt like this was kind of a political issue more than it was a data-driven issue when this was brought up. When we talk about harm reduction, we need to be talking about everybody, 360 degrees. If you go up to that in-site location in Vancouver, it's completely horrifying. Additionally, I think its time has come and gone to experiment with it. The data does not support it. There was a time when you needed an injection to come out of an overdose, but now we have nasal sprays. So that doesn't make sense to me. And one of our biggest problems is meth, and it's not addressed at all in an injection site. So clearly my answer is no.
Joe.
I do not support safe injection sites. This is a data-driven organization, and as many of us have said, I have not seen compelling data that this type of program would be helpful in assisting people out of their addiction cycles. Further, I think we should be focusing on preventing drug usage, focusing on the supply side, prosecuting dealers while providing divergence programs for drug users, helping them to break the cycles of addiction and poverty. Further, one of the most big picture planks in my platform is expanding our navigation force into its own branch of first responders, aiming to uplift and assist the residents of our communities. Thank you.
Okay, first question, another 45-second response. We'll start with Terry from the audience. The Seattle Police Department has a community police team and a micro community policing plan. We also have a community police commission and an upcoming community service officer program. Meanwhile, areas in District 6 have high property crime rates, slow response times, and no regular bike patrols in high population areas. What does community policing mean to you, and how can you help lead to better results?
Such an important issue right now. So community policing is that engaging in trust building and conversations with the people that are served by the police force. What's happening today is that the Seattle police force is too small and too overworked to really engage in this level of local community policing. And we see this constantly in terms of call response times. So increasing the capacity for the Seattle Police Department to engage in this type of police work is critically important. And that means finding new recruits, and it means creating working conditions that retain the officers that we have, that makes up for folks who are retiring.
Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to hire more police officers. I've been a victim of property crime myself, and a local organization had a bell stolen from us, and we had to do our own investigative work to find that bell. You know, we need to be able to have police. When I grew up with the children of Seattle police officers, and we need to have that as part of our community, having officers live here in the community. We need to have these resources so that they can serve us better.
Heidi.
Yes, I think it's, we've talked about it a lot, about how important it is that we have enough police officers for building trust and having those eyes on the ground. Many of the property crimes that we're experiencing in District 6 are crimes of opportunity. And if we had more police in our neighborhoods, I think that would help substantially. In order to scale up, I think that we need to do better with recruitment and retention. As mentioned, there's already over 130 vacancies in our department, and as it is, we have a very small department as compared with other similarly sized cities. So I think that this is a priority issue in District 6.
Jeremy.
To me, community policing is getting out and talking to people, knowing the citizens, engaging with them. Also, I think that we could have improved response times if we reduce the amount of paperwork that police have to do. I've heard that that's a pretty big part of their job, and in a lot of cases, I'm not sure how necessary it is. And just them being out and in the areas. Maybe some things can be done with dispatch to get them there quicker. But also, if we're going to if we're going to give more police, we need to allow them to do their jobs so that they don't feel demoralized.
Jay.
Obviously, public safety is one of the core functions of city and municipal government, which involves the police force, obviously. And you could certainly hear from the person to my left more about this than myself, but I've talked to police officers and said the morale is low. We are not appreciated, we are understaffed, we have too much administrative burden. It's an uphill slog right now. In our neighborhood, in our district, it was this weekend at the Times, I think everybody saw the crime going up in Fremont and South Ballard. That's real. You don't need to necessarily see that statistic. I talk to people when I'm door knocking. People are sending me emails that say, I don't feel safe sending my kids to Manor anymore to go get milk at 4 o'clock on a Saturday. I have neighbors saying, I can see people coming up and down the street with that look kind of like, maybe they're not have the best of intentions. This is all connected. It's extremely complex. There's a lot of things we need to do to make it better, but yes, we need more police and more community policing in this district.
So, yeah, we need more cops. I think it's something that all of us know this, right? The vacancies are there. We have signing bonuses, 15 grand. A signing bonus is pretty significant. We cannot hire anybody. Nobody wants to work here. I think it's a combination of the environment that we've created for the officers, and it's something I experience for 9 hours a day. It's a hiring and retention, and hiring locally as well. It's very important. Less than 7% of our officers live in Seattle. Less than 11% of firefighters live in Seattle, right? I think that the connection I have with the community, and as my colleague here said, it's very important for us to park our cars and walk out there and get to know the community. That's really where community policing starts, right? It's a very complex issue. Please come talk to me afterwards if you want to hear more.
Well, I can't top that firsthand knowledge, but what I can say is my wife is Japanese and she lives in Japan, and they have police precincts on corners and little kiosks where police actually stay there, and that's my idea, because Japan is one of the most safe countries in the world. I'm a small business person, and I dealt with in a very competitive industry. We were competing for employees with Microsoft and Google, and we were just a small company. And I agree with the bonuses that the mayor is offering for police officers, but that's just table stakes. What the police officers really need, and what a company needs, or a staffing needs to recruit and retain, is a great workplace. And we have to support our police here in Seattle. Thank you.
Okay.
I definitely support that. I've been going to the North Precinct's Advisory Committee meetings pretty regularly. So everybody south of the Ship Canal, all the council districts, they have their own police precinct for every 100,000 people. North of the Ship Canal, we have one precinct for 300,000 people. The response time is horrible. We happen to have just, with Sergio's ability to walk the beat in Fremont, people love it. We need that to be the rule, not the exception. Myself, our new chief in Seattle commutes an hour and a half to get each way to get to that job at the North Seattle precinct. I would like to attract people to live here. That would help.
Joey.
Clearly, we have some systemic issues causing deficiencies within our police force. This bonus has not addressed those issues. You can pay people more money, but if they're working in a toxic structure, they're not going to enjoy and they're not going to stay in that structure. Further, with my program to trial a pilot program, with my goal to trial a pilot program or expanding our navigation team, one of the main goals, speaking to policy goals, of that program would be to take some of the burden off of our police force, get them back to the jobs that they were hired, trained, and outfitted to do, and give our citizens and our residents more tools to address the problems that they're facing in a modern city, not the problems that we've been facing historically.
Thank you. John.
The effect of community policing is twofold. First, a deterrent for those who would contemplate committing a crime. They're not likely to when they see more cops around. And that results in greater safety and greater perception of safety as well. And what community policing looks like to me is cops walking the beat in pairs, bicycle cops, career days at schools, elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. Public safety is a charter duty of the city council. And also community policing looks like more officer cookie types who can go engage with our youth. And since she has the chests all wrapped up, I would suggest a boggle or something athletic.
Okay, next question from the audience. This is another 45-second response. I'm going to take the liberty of combining 3 questions, actually there's 4, into one, and it all deals with the issue of camping and homelessness. So, will you advocate for enforcing existing laws on illegal camping on public property in Seattle? And the second part of the question comes from a different person. Do you feel like Seattle currently is spending enough money on the homelessness issue? And we're starting with Dan.
That was 4 questions?
That was sort of 4 distilled into 2. So, what's your position on illegal camping? 1. 2, do you feel like the city is spending enough on homelessness?
I think that we need to provide more housing, more services, and at that point we can address what is occurring in our neighborhoods and in our civic spaces. I currently have people living unhoused in public spaces out very close to my home. We need to have a place for them to go, which is 4 walls and a locked door. The city is spending a lot of money on homelessness right now, and we need to be able to fund the contracts that are performing well and reroute the dollars from contracts that are not performing well to better serve our citizens, better serve you and me.
The city can no longer condone people sleeping in tents in our public parks and our public spaces. I was the first candidate in this race to say that on the record, and it's very important because it's unsafe and it's unhygienic for people living in that situation and for those of us living around it. The 9th District Court says, of course we know this, people need somewhere to go. And until we have enough funding for transitional shelters with supportive services, we need to support FEMA-style tents.
Jeremy.
Yes, I do support the sweeps and clearing out of homeless people that are illegally camped. We need to get those people into shelters. Obviously, some of them won't go, but that doesn't mean that we don't still need to do the sweeps. I feel that the city spends its fair share of money on the problem, although I think that better coordination could probably see better outcomes for the dollars that they spend. We need to look at the contractors that the city pays to provide services to the homeless and evaluate what it is they're actually getting for their money and if maybe other people can do a better job.
Like we've been discussing, this is an extremely complex problem. I think, again, I've talked to a lot of people, we all have, and one of my friends who's 85 years old, another person, said, Jay, when it comes to the homelessness problem, it feels like we're failing. And it's really hard not to disagree with that. We're failing. It feels like we're failing. We're putting a lot of time and effort and resources into it, and a lot of good intentions, and we can see the results. This is not acceptable to have people living in these conditions. They are inhuman, they are unsafe, they are public health risks, and I'm sorry, we need to do more. There's a lot of health risks there, so we need to possibly spend more money. We need to have more shelters, we need to have more permanent housing, and we need to hold the contractors accountable, and we need to coordinate better.
So I might have not been the first person to set it on record, but 2 years when I started working here at SPD, I realized it wasn't a good idea. On my first day, I was like, yeah, there's something wrong here. It's unsafe. At one point, we had 9 overdoses in one day at the Fremont encampment. And when we would get there, we couldn't even walk up because of all needles, uncapped needles that were poking out of the path to get upstairs, to get where the tents are at. So I'm not in support of them, but we need to understand that the issue is a lot bigger than what we're talking. We don't have the personnel. I personally have been a police officer for almost 15 years. I don't have the training to move these people out of these encampments. right? So again, the conversation is a lot deeper than saying, hey, let's double the navigation team. Where are you gonna get the numbers from? We can't hire anybody, right? Again, these are things that we need to sit down and really talk about.
John? Again, 4 years ago, I said, if we don't change things, we're gonna have the same results. And the results were a lot worse than I thought. And homelessness in Ballard has quadrupled in just the last year, even though the city professes that they're getting better outcomes. So how do you reconcile that difference? And that's because I feel that more and more people are becoming homeless. I definitely support housing first, but we really have to concentrate on keeping people from becoming homeless in the first place, because that's really the best use of our tax dollars. And as far as the 9th District Circuit Court of Appeals, I'm kind of happy that it happened, because we really need to build housing for people, and we have to get them off the streets.
Okay.
I want to make a quick shout out to this organization, Speak Out Seattle, for the work they did of revolting against the head tax, because if that had not happened, this whole conversation right here wouldn't have happened. So thank you very much to Speak Out Seattle. Where's the plan? Where's the results? Where's the money going? We have 7,000 people living unsheltered in Seattle. To Heidi's point, we're taking way more than our share. I keep saying we need an HQ2, perhaps over in Bellevue, to help us out with this situation. But these people living in these tents, they're us. They're our families, they're our friends, they're our relatives. We need to get them out of tents and RVs and under bridges and help them rebuild their lives.
Joey.
So as Sergio mentioned, our police force is inadequately trained, equipped, and their mission does not support addressing the issues that our homeless population is facing. A few weeks ago, I was speaking to a committee of firefighters in my efforts to receive their endorsement. When I was speaking with them, I told them about my plan to establish a series of low barrier encampments so we can give these folks somewhere to habitate where we can supply them with services, toilets, facilities, etc. One of the younger members of that committee turned to me and he said, well, do you want one of these in your backyard? I said, well, look, there's already 15, 20 of them in my backyard. What we are doing right now is wasting our money and wasting our funding and chasing and playing a game of cat and mouse around our city with these individuals, not providing the services they need.
John.
I do not support the illegal camping. The rule should apply to everyone, and there is nothing humane about leaving our down-and-out neighbors in tents or on the streets. We are spending enough. We're just not spending it in the right places. We need to redirect our spending to good performers, those organizations that restore people to dignity and get them on that road to self-sufficiency rather than storing them around town. Some organizations simply put people on a roundabout and store them. I want to get them on that two-lane partnership out of homelessness into self-sufficiency.
Sure.
So I live in Ballard, and this issue recently came up in my neighborhood because a couple blocks down from where I live was an encampment, and after the neighbors in there made it an issue, the encampment was swept, and within days, all of the residents who were in the encampment were just spread out to the blocks around where the encampment was. So they don't work. The sweeps don't work to achieve our goals, which is to move people into long-term housing. So I want to focus our efforts on long-term supportive housing and upstream diversion, where we can focus on what actually works. And I would say when it comes to if we're spending enough money, we don't know yet because there's not enough transparency and there's not enough oversight on how the money's being spent.
Okay, we'll do one more lightning round and then we'll get to another audience question. And this is actually a lightning round coming from the audience. How did you vote? And we can use your signs. I guess you can use a yes or no as far as up or down. How did you vote on the last school levy? All right. Holding your signs up, you just get 10 seconds. Tell me why. Starting with Heidi.
I work in youth 13 years. It's vitally important. Enough said.
I believe education is very important, but unfortunately, I believe too much money goes to the top administrators and not enough to the teachers. And so, as a new tax, I felt that it would be wasted.
I attended Seattle Public Schools. My children go to Seattle Public Schools. I volunteer in Seattle Public Schools, and unfortunately, the legislature is still falling short in adequately funding public schools across the state. So unfortunately, there are times where we have to fund it ourselves. Sergio.
I showed up to work that day and asked my boss to go vote. I was still under the impression that we voted like we did in Florida, where there's actually a place to go vote. So I was able to vote. So I would have voted yes if it makes any difference.
Well, I probably voted for every levy because we're so desperate for services here. And I have a kid in a public school system, so that's why I voted.
Okay.
We need a tremendous amount of reform in the education system. 50% of the kids are not learning how to read, write, or do math coming through it. But I did not think that the ballot box and starving the school district was the place to put my opinion.
Joe.
My entire the majority of my immediate family are educators, and in their opinions that they have expressed to me, it's clear that the McCleary decision has not yet fully been implemented in the ways that they see fit. Our state has a duty to fully fund our schools, and if they can't step up and do it, then our city should definitely be providing those services.
John.
I voted no because we're experiencing tax fatigue, and there was no guarantee that the money would go to the only relationship that matters, the classroom.
Terry.
I voted yes because I grew up in public housing and I went to public schools, and that is what created the opportunity for me in my life. And until we fix it at a state level, we have to ensure that that opportunity exists for everyone.
And Dan.
We've spent a lot of time today speaking about homelessness, and the programs that were in this levy directly support keeping kids in school and providing them an education when otherwise they would not be able to receive these wraparound services. We know that education disrupts intergenerational poverty, and these programs keep people who would otherwise not be able to have full services at school.
Thank you. All right, this is a quick response question. We'll make it, can you do 20 seconds on this? Great. This will be a 20-second question, starting with Jeremy. This is the day after you get elected to City Council, what is your first priority?
To sit down with the city attorney and find out what's going on with all of the people that are committing the crimes in the city.
Okay. Well, you got to figure out what the bathroom is and things like that. We're gonna. I can't answer that question. We have a lot of things to manage with our great city that is growing, continuing to grow with our large budget. We've got to learn how to work effectively. I'm certainly going to immediately work on being less divisive, more collaborative, and take it from there with my colleagues and from you. Sergio.
So for a living, what I do is I show up to your house and people are having disagreements. I sit down at the table and we find a resolution, and that is what I intend to do. I intend to walk into City Hall and start having these conversations. We're not going to agree on absolutely everything, but it's time for us to start having these tough conversations, and I feel like I am the candidate that can create that consensus.
John.
I would be meeting my fellow council members because I think, as a business person too, I worked on the goal management team, and we work together to solve problems. And with the challenges we have in this city, the people on the city council, we need to work together to solve problems. We all have to be on the same page. Thank you.
Okay.
I think what I'm going to do first is just start working with my colleagues to figure out what committees we need to have and which ones we need to serve on. Personally, I'm super interested in education, land use, and budget. But that's something you have to negotiate with your colleagues, and I look forward to that.
Joe.
One of the first things I would do upon election to City Council is start getting to know our city departments. One of the reasons I'm running for City Council is that as a constituent, it was clear to me that there was dysfunction within a variety of our city departments. I have a number of friends who are small business owners who have expressed extreme frustration in obtaining permits, and the various levels of bureaucracy they have to go to. We need to work on reforming our city and being more effective.
John.
The first thing I would do is get to know my fellow city council representatives in honor of the people in their districts who elected them. And then I would take my staff and I would start in the auditor's office and get to know all of the city departments and start going to work trimming bloat.
Terry.
Not one single issue would take my time on day one. In my experience in the private sector, I've never had a day at work where I get to focus on one single thing. We have a number of tremendous challenges that face us, from infrastructure to housing affordability to homelessness. This is one of those things where we need to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. We need to look at all of these issues together and how they interact with one another.
Dan.
I'm the only candidate up here who can hit the ground running, as I already know where the levers and the brakes are on the second floor in City Hall. I'm going to spend my time out in the community, making sure that you know how to get a hold of me and my staff to be able to navigate the bureaucracy that is city government. I want to work for you.
Heidi.
Dan, I can hit the ground running. I mean, it's been 16 years since I've been on the city council, but I know where the bathrooms are. I think what's really important is talking with city employees. By the time they come to the council, they have really structured their arguments and just talking with the people who are working in the city about what's working and what's not.
Okay, and thank you everyone for your patience. We have one more question, then we're going to switch to the candidate. You're going to have a chance to wrap it up. Last question is from the audience as well. I want a council member to represent my district. How will you specifically represent District 6 at the council table? And we're starting with Heidi.
The thing that happened when I was on the council is it felt very insular. And one thing I would change, and I love districting, is that we need to be more engaged in the community with the people who are affected by the decisions happening in City Hall. I would like to establish an office in District 6 and be there at least one day a week.
Yes, I agree. I would like to make it more accessible for people to come and talk to their council person. I'd also like to have an office in the area, as well as set up some weekend hours, as a lot of people have to work during the week, and it would be good to be able to come and talk to your council person when you are able. And so that's how I would make it more accessible and specifically represent the people in my district.
Well, excuse me, the concept of elected representative government across the country, this is what the core function of it is. City council, the way it is with districts, is like Congress for the city. It is astounding to me when I hear people say that certain individuals were not responsive to their constituents. I have a hard time wrapping my head around that. You're going to be able to send someone to City Hall that is going to work for you. We're going to govern the entire city. We need to be able to collaborate with other folks from other districts and the at-large folks, but we're working for the people of District 6, for the betterment of the city. In-district office presence, coffees, office hours, meetings, dedicated staff to be able to answer people's concerns in the district. I'm fully confident we'll be able to take care of that.
Good.
I don't think anyone else is going to disagree on what we're saying here. My office is actually already in the district. I do believe that we need to represent you guys and gals a lot better, give the voice back to the district, and that's what district elections is all about, right? Giving the voice and that representation that the district is so desperately seeking. I think I don't have necessarily the answers to absolutely everything, but that is what's great about the city, is that we're surrounded with extremely well-knowledgeable people who are being impacted by these issues. And that's why you guys elect your representatives to go out there and represent you on what your issues are and what you think, how you think they should be handled.
No. Well, again, that's why I'm running, because I don't feel like we've been given a voice, and we have a voice in the city council. I go down to city council meetings, and I personally have felt ignored, and that gets you extremely upset. So I'm already doing that. I have office hours at the Dane every Saturday from 9 to 11, and you can go meet me right there. And I intend to keep that, my ear open for you, City Council, for you, so you have a voice in City Hall. Thank you.
Okay.
So back in the day, we used to have a really bottom-up kind of enabling of our lovely neighborhoods, and before we even had a district, we really had a voice. And slowly, special interests have taken over down in City Hall, and they're just marching to those drummers. We're going to need a lot of force from you to change that. I'm with you. I'm going to represent you. I can't wait to represent you. But we need to spread that out down there so that everybody's being represented. So some of my ideas are for, instead of like a planning commission that tells us what to do from downtown, that we have our own district planning commission to make our own plans and then have a chance to implement them. So that's one way that I'd like to represent you.
One of the main reasons I'm running for city council is that I have seen a clear lack of servant leadership in our city hall. What you should be asking yourselves as constituents of this district is what types of leaders are we looking to elect? What are their priorities? How do they listen to you? And are our opinions stronger than we think your opinions are? Because I'll tell you what, your representatives should be listening to you, hearing your opinions, and channeling your energies clearly into the solutions that we need to see as a city.
Tom. And one of the reasons why I'm running is to give you a voice and to listen to you, because a lot of us have not been heard by our current representative. So I will be here in the district. Coffee's, you've heard it before, Coffee's a district office, and weekend needle and trash cleanups. Looking forward to joining Speak Out Seattle and Unified Seattle and cleaning up the neighborhoods, and also going to other neighborhoods in the city. And so, and even when you and I disagree on things, I will be listening to you, and we can still be friends.
Terry.
I got into this race because I'm deeply concerned about the trajectory of Seattle today, and I'm worried that in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, as I'm raising my family in District 6, we're going to still be talking about homelessness and affordable housing and public safety if we don't do something very different today. So when I think about what that means to represent the folks of District 6, it means that we have to take ideas from everywhere in the district, working with nonprofit organizations, with small businesses like the one I lead today, with community groups, and with our neighbors to bring voices to City Hall. So that's something that doesn't end at the campaign, it's something that continues through governing, and that's really why I'm in the race.
Damn. My best days are days I don't leave District 6. I'm serious. I grew up in Ballard, lived in Upper Fremont and Green Lake. These are the neighborhoods that are really important to me. You'll see me and we can talk as we walk around Green Lake. We'll see each other at the farmer's market. I'm gonna make myself available to you on your schedule because City Hall should be accessible to you where you are. You shouldn't have to schlep downtown. You shouldn't have to bang on the doors and request to be heard. It's my goal. The reason that I'm here is because I want to keep my folks in place, allow the friends that I grew up with to continue living in this city and work for you.
Okay, we're at time for closing statements. We're going to start with Heidi and work this direction. So Heidi, you'll have 30 seconds for your closing statement.
Okay. Politics is a series of conversations between elected leaders and the electorate. Those conversations haven't been adequate at the local level, leading to deep dissatisfaction. People want more of a voice in the decisions affecting them. I'm prepared to convene those conversations in our community around zoning changes, public safety, transportation, homelessness, the needs of small businesses, and other issues affecting our quality of life, to find solutions in the best interests of all of us. I'd appreciate your support and your democracy vouchers.
Dan.
I'm deeply committed to this district. I love our district. I want to work for you. I want to thank the Troop 827 for coming out tonight with the civics. I am a committed person with community already. It's my passion. I want to be here and serve for you, and I ask for your support.
Terry.
I hope what you've heard tonight is, for me, is a progressive and pragmatic individual who is deeply concerned about the trajectory of our world-class city. Deciding to run for office was something that was a very difficult decision because it means putting my career that I love on hold to do this work. And I do that because I can't imagine doing something more important right now for the city of Seattle. to tackle our biggest challenges around homelessness and affordable housing, around making Seattle more livable, more affordable, and more equitable.
All right, now that I'm all relaxed and warmed up and I feel like I've known you for years, don't let it be goodbye. And I'll be here for as long as it takes tonight. So I'm looking forward to representing you all on the City Council. Thank you very much for considering it. Peoplesforseattle.com. And remember, please sign up to vote, and 100% turnout in August and then November. Thank you.
Joey.
Again, my name is Joey Massa. I've spent my life in service, and I'm looking to continue that for you and with you as my community. With that being said, in my closing statements, I would really just like to thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight. Civic engagement and democratic government don't work unless our constituents are engaged. And one of the reasons I was so excited to run is how incredibly engaged, energized, and active our community has become in the political scene. And I just wanted to say thank you again for giving us all a little bit of your time tonight.
Okay.
Thank you. So thank you again to everyone for being here. Myself, about 20 years ago, I jumped into this issue, and one thing led to another. I've served on commissions and councils and advisory groups and volunteered from one end of this district to the other while raising my two sons. I think that that experience that I have of being very intimately involved with this community has very well prepared me to represent you and all of our neighborhoods down at City Hall. As I said, I dig deep on the policy issues. I am not a politician that would be waving my hands around not knowing what I'm talking about. So I appreciate your vote and your vouchers. Thank you.
John.
Well, I also want to thank you for coming here today, because I know you're out here because you really care about our neighborhoods. I really care about them too. I've lived in Ballard for 20 years now. I raised a family here. And I want to assure you that your voice will be heard with me in City Council. And my position continues to evolve as I listen to people, because I'm really listening to people. And that's why I'm running, because I want to hear your voice. And I think that's what you want from your representative. You want somebody who will actively listen to you, and that's what I think we've been missing so far. So I think together we can bring your voice back to City Hall. Thank you.
Sergio.
I'm already serving everyone in here, and I think this is extraordinary that everybody's here today, these numbers, and we're not here because our politicians are lacking experience, or our politicians are lacking the knowledge on how to balance a budget. We're obviously unhappy, and we want change. We want our voices to be heard. We want true representation, and I hope that you folks see that in me and allow me to give this district that I care for and I serve every single day the true representation and voice it needs.
Jay.
I'm running for Seattle City Council for the same reasons that you're here tonight. We know that we can do better. We know that we must do better, and I'm wholly confident that we will do better. The community is incredible, and the energy that we have is incredible. I want our council member from D6 to be someone that is experienced, someone that has the right experience, someone that has a history of bringing groups together to collaborate, someone who's going to use data and evidence, someone who's going to be a strong and collaborative leader. Thank you very much for coming tonight and being engaged citizens.
Jeremy.
Thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you SOS for hosting this event. Seattle is a great city full of great food, great entertainment, great people, and many opportunities. However, it faces many tough problems. Obviously, homelessness, affordable housing, and transportation are some of the biggest. I look forward to hearing from you and listening to your thoughts. I will be available afterwards to talk with you, and as always, democracy vouchers, donations to qualify for democracy vouchers, and your votes are always appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, we want to thank everyone for participating in the forum tonight, especially the candidates who care enough to run for office and serve our city. Don't forget, that the democracy voucher folks are here from the city, and if you're interested in learning more about Speak Out Seattle, visit their table in the back. The next candidate forum will be in District 5, which is most of the neighborhoods north of 85th Street in Seattle, on May 9th at the Holler Lake Community Club. You can also watch it via the live stream on Speak Out Seattle's YouTube channel. Thank you all and have a good night.